Suns fans, you know what time it is in the PHX.
Empire of the Suns.
Phoenix Suns.
The Empire of the Suns podcast is brought to you by Sonic. Sonic.
Empire of the Suns.
Hello there, and welcome to the Empire of the Suns podcast. My name is Kellan Olson. I'm joined by Kevin Zimmerman. What's up, man?
Good inflections. I'm doing well.
I
Yeah,
gotta do it different every time.
I know.
I challenge myself. The listeners are like, really? He does? They're like, yeah, man.
I wonder if they think it's like super fun or like what will Kellan do this time.
They're just super annoyed by it, but you know what I do? I grab their attention right away, and that's the point.
I like when we stick to bits in life. Never move it off.
You've known me for a long time. You know I'm a bit guy.
Yes.
Everyone who knows me knows I'm a bit guy. The Suns had a bit in Dallas and Houston. We're going to talk about the three games after the All-Star break. Just less about the games and more so about, hey, guess what's on Friday? March. We've had a lot of like, if by this date the Suns are this or whatever, and it's like, it's March. We're here. The Suns kind of are what they are. Not kind of. They mostly are what they are at this point. And so taking that into consideration, what does that mean? Just quickly run through the games. Dallas and Houston losses where you were tweeting this. I wrote about it for the Dallas game specifically. You just combine like 5 to 7 minutes of game time across the second half in Dallas, and they got outscored by 30 points. They just lost focus for small segments of the game, and that was enough. And then in the Houston game, they just should have blown them out in the first half. Houston was ready to get blown out. Everyone on the floor for them looked like they were thinking about where they were going after the game and then what they were doing for like brunch on Saturday. It didn't look like they were focused on basketball. And then all of a sudden, like Jalen Green is like attacking in transition, and it's like, like they understand they can beat you now, and that's a problem because they didn't look like they thought they could. Going into that. They lose that game. That was a very 50-50 possession-by-possession game in the fourth quarter, but that doesn't matter a ton. Then they beat the Lakers in an encouraging win because it was the most, in my opinion, the most well-rounded game they played this season from a contribution standpoint. Not a good Booker game, not a good Durant game to their standards, but all of the supporting cast that played got in there, and then the coolest wrinkle of the game was that we saw a playoff rotation. 37 to 39 minutes for the starters. Royce O'Neal was in for Eric Gordon. No Bradley Beal again. We'll get to that in now. I guess I'll get to it now. I mean, there's you guys don't know the drill by now. We don't really have any updates. He's questionable for tomorrow, and he's going to probably keep being questionable until he plays. I don't know what to add on that, but Bol Bol plays 24 minutes off the bench, I think, and that's pretty much those guys. No one else played above 10. And so it was good to see. So a mixing and matching of three performances for us to go off of, Kevin.
Yeah, I guess we talk about we're here. We're in almost March. We have an extra day until March this year, leap year, shouts. But I'm curious, like, what if we've spent all this season talking about like a team that obviously is led by a couple guys in Book and Katie who know this is a long season. So Frank never panicked. Not those two guys, the leaders, have never sensed, put out signs of like the things are sinking or this isn't going to work, despite obviously how we've reacted and fans have reacted. I'm just wondering if there's any chance that like they are just floating because it's hard to focus and they're just lock in at some point. Now, when you come out of the All-Star break looking like that, it makes it a lot easier to lock in for like that Lakers game. So I think we are at the point where we won't have the, like you wrote in your story, like the just wait and we'll see if they like clean up the little batches of minutes where they just fall apart.
I think that's just who they are.
They can't have that in the playoffs. Like, everyone knows that, and I think I put out a very sarcastic tweet. It was apparently not clearly sarcastic, but I was like, if they just got rid of those minutes, they'd be fine. And people are like, well, they don't get rid of those minutes. Just like, yeah, that's the point. That's
you can't
why
do
I said
sarcasm
that.
after a loss. You can't
I know.
Do it. You know that.
I know. I'll live with the results of that, but yeah, so I just think that like we're going to see whether they lock in or not now. We're going to see how you deal with losing two guys who should be in your rotation. And again, that Lakers game was a good example. We should talk about Bol Bol real quick. I mean, like, until he's not giving them that extra something, that juice, whatever you want to call it, that unique ability to just like kind of give them energy. I think he's in the rotation, and we couldn't have called that in the preseason, the way he was playing. Even like it has been to me a drastic turn where it's not many possessions where he's just blatantly messing up. And he's playing like a good role player. So that's another add. And like, he's peaking at the right time if that's indeed going to stay. Don't know if the shot's going to stay that accurate and stretching ability, but we'll see. So there's a lot to kind of sort out. But yes, we are there, and we are going to start looking at like, this team has flaws, but
he needs to play every game now. Whether it's situation, like what combination of the pie chart is situation, himself, whatever it is, everything that wasn't coming together for him in Orlando is coming together here, where he is perfectly able to understand and execute what he needs to be doing on the floor and not doing anything more than that.
Yeah.
And now he is finding confidence within that role. Like, these floaters that he's taking from the mid-range go in a lot, but that wasn't a shot that he would have taken 3 weeks ago necessarily. So that has been really great to see. We were dead wrong on that. The Suns nailed this. Even if this is it, like, they still nailed it. Like, getting the contributions they've gotten from him for whatever, it's been 10 games now. That was the type of signing that we were critical of, and the Suns have turned it around on a lot of the naysayers, and including him. Shout out to him. You'd love to see someone succeed, especially in a situation like that. And
I will
it's
say,
a matter of how sustainable the lineups are where you play him, because you and I talked about him a lot previously. He's a 5. The shot pretty much makes him a 5. He's hitting enough threes right now to be playing some 4. With Durant at the 3, or whatever you want to call whoever's the 3 in that situation. I don't know, in the Monstars lineup, but he just needs to keep hitting threes. And if he keeps hitting threes, he can play the 4 and get more minutes. But if it's the other way around, then you got to play him at the 5, and it's like that small ball at that point pretty much. So we'll see how it goes. But he's been doing really, really well. And I think the point of the piece, I didn't get to it with Bol Bol, but these guys have proven, the supporting cast, mainly Grayson and Yusuf, but also Eric Gordon, Royce O'Neal lately, and Bol Bol lately, have proven that they're good enough in their roles to really contribute and help them win in the regular season. But can they do it in the playoffs? The playoffs is a whole other beast. Don't know. I just don't know.
I was just going to say it's wild that we thought, okay, they hit on all these minimum signings, these guys who haven't been on good teams, once on a winning squad, kind of like we assumed everyone would be Josh Okogie and thrive next to superstars, and it just didn't happen. And then they trade all of them for the guy who can do that in Royce O'Neal. But it's weird that the one guy on this roster in Bol, who was the developmental kind of archetype, I don't know words, but
it's a good word.
Yeah. To start this year is now the guy who seems to be like taking steps, being somewhat reliable, knowing his role, fitting his role in, and really, if you look at what's crazy about this roster construction is in this last set of games after the All-Star break, it's the guys who are scorers, who are secondary guys, who have thrived the most around the big 3. And I think to your point of what you wrote, it's interesting that, Nurkic, to some degree, I mean, to many degrees, he's an offensive player. But like Grayson, Eric Gordon, Bol Bol, shot makers, like, they're benefiting the most, when really it's like, man, if KBD was on this team and was just making shots, you'd be in a different place. But here we are, and shot makers are benefiting from playing with some of the best shot makers, which, again, is just super weird to think about it that way. But it's also, makes sense.
Coming up, they've got 2 games against Houston, and then I think we oftentimes refer to the road trip, the East Coast road trip, as the most difficult part of the schedule, and I still stand by that because of how road trips are. But in terms of opponents, this 6-game stretch after the Houston game on Saturday is by far their most difficult. They've got Oklahoma City at home, away at Denver, home against Toronto, which is fine. But then you've got home Boston, at Cleveland, at Boston. That's brutal. And then the last 10 games of the season are Denver, OKC, New Orleans, Cleveland, Minnesota, New Orleans, LA, the Clippers again, and then the Kings and the Timberwolves again. They've got a brutal stretch here. That's why that Houston game was so inexcusable for so many reasons. Mainly just like, hey, you might be a play-in team, and if you are one game away, this is the type of game that like you should have never ever.
And the next 2 Houston games,
lost that game. So these next 2, they got to take care of business. They got to win these games because they are playing elite teams. And to kind of go on that for a bit. To start with OKC, we'll briefly mention Denver. We'll get to Boston next week. Those 2 games aren't coming until the next time that we will podcast. There are 2 teams in the league that are top 5 in offensive rating and defensive rating. OKC is 3rd in offensive rating, and they are 4th in defensive rating. Boston is 1st in offensive rating and 2nd in defensive rating. That's the other team. OKC is led by a 3-headed monster that are all babies, essentially, but it doesn't matter. They're just running the league right now. Shea's averaging 31 a game and shooting 55% from the field. It's insane. That's the Kevin Durant line almost, and he's a guard. Jalen Williams, 19 a game, is shooting 54 from the field. Chet Holmgren, 17 a game. My hypothesis preseason, like he might just be really good right away. He's really good right away. 54 from 3 and 54 from the field. That's really their core 3 guys who score for them, and then it's a myriad of different guys who will contribute and play well for them. But the main thing to understand on them is that they are an excellent shooting team. At the free throw line, they lead the league in free throw percentage, 83%. And then from 3, they're at nearly 40% as a team. They're at 39.8.
Jeez. As
a team. Shea, 3 attempts. And how they do this is interesting because there is no one who is doing a Luka thing where they're taking 10 threes a game or a Steph thing or a Clay thing. Everyone, the leader in 3-point attempts per game is Lou Dort at just under 5. And that's it. But let me go through their leading scores again by 3-pointers percentage. Shea, 38.9. Jalen Williams, 45.4. Chet, 40.1. He's a 7-footer. Remember that. Josh Giddey, 32.7 is the only anomaly. And I wonder... Part of the Gordon Hayward thing makes me wonder, like, did they bring Gordon Hayward here just to play over Josh Giddey in a certain context? Lou Dort, you hear that number and you're like, oh man, remember when Lou Dort was really bad as a shooter? 40.1. Look at Lou working.
Hey, if you get that many up, he's been doing it since college, and they're confident shots, and
that was the Chris Paul thing for me, where like Chris Paul liked him, and I was like, he's gonna be a good shooter. Like Chris is like just has a nose for those kinds of things. Isaiah Joe, speaking of good shooters, 42.6, and he's taking 4.5 a game and only 18.5 minutes a game. So he per 36, he's their guy. Cason Wallace, we mentioned pre-draft, we liked him.
What's he shooting overall?
41.6% from 3 on nearly 3 a game, and then 50.7 from the field. He's only taking 5 shots a game, but still pretty good.
He was shooting like 60%, and he's a guard for like the good first quarter of the season or something.
Aaron Wiggins, he's only out there for 14 minutes a game. He's shooting 51.2% from the field. That's on like whatever this is, like 100 total attempts maybe. Kenrich Williams, 40. Ousmane Dieng, 31. There's your outlier. And then Jalen Williams, I take charges a lot. Jalen Williams, like he had a ridiculous amount last year. I'm sure he has a lot this year. He's a stretch 5. He's 36.
Yeah.
So they've got a lot going for them. They're incorporating Gordon Hayward as well, who has just played in 4 games for them. He's only shooting 29% from the field. Hasn't taken a 3 yet, which is kind of weird, interesting thing. Barely has any assists, so I think he was just kind of playing off the ball a lot and getting used to it. And that was the thing with him moving. I was like, as long as you're not taking the ball out of the other guys' hands, mainly Williams and Shea, then I'm cool with it. And it seems
he
like
won't. Yeah.
Statistically, that's where they're at.
They're good.
Legitimately, they're great. And the only thing keeping them from being a team that I would pick to make the finals right now is how old they are. And that's it. Everyone knows I'm a firm believer in experience and just having guys that have made the postseason. Now, I wrote the article when the Suns were looking like a finals team the year they made the finals. And I was like, the only reason why I'm not picking them is because of experience. And then here is the track record, why it is incredibly rare for guys 25 or younger in their first postseason to make the finals, like with a couple of those guys in the starting lineup. None of these guys have played in the playoffs before. Gordon Hayward, I guess, is now a qualifier, but that's it. Lou Dort actually has, he was one of the few holdovers from the Chris Paul
Shea
team.
has a couple.
Shea has a couple too. Yeah, I'm totally
Clippers.
wrong. Excuse me.
It's Dort and Shea. I'm trying to think, and Hayward, obviously.
Yeah. I think Kenrich Williams was around for those teams as well.
Here's the thing, though. Like when the Suns made that run, they had Chris Paul, and so that covers.
They had Jay Crowder too,
and Jay Crowder.
Yes.
I should say him too. That makes up for a lot. When you just have those guys around, they don't really have that guy who's going to play that much, even if Hayward's playing 25, 30 minutes.
So Shea and Dort, and then Kenrich Williams didn't really play that much on that team.
But I will say...
Guess who started 49 games for that team?
Oof. Wait, which team?
Oh, excuse me. I'm sorry. That was the 22-win Oklahoma City Thunder that had Teo Maledon starting 49 games. Yeah, so Shea was on that team. Lou Dort was on that team. No, he was not there yet. Actually, Kenrich wasn't there. So those are the two guys. But to your point, what you're mentioning and what I was about to say is that was the big difference. And this team, Gordon Hayward arriving is their veteran. Here are their ages. Shea's 25. Jalen Williams 22. Chet's 21. Lou Dort's 24. Getty's 21. Wallace is 20. Isaiah Joe, who seems like he's been around, he's 24.
Yeah.
Kenrich is 29. He's the older one of the group. Gordon Hayward comes in. He's 33. But it is a young group. I think, is Biz still there? Was that a contract for the rest of the season for Bismack?
Do not know.
So they brought in some veterans, like Bertans was kind of there for a bit until they did their deal to make things happen there. But they are a fantastic basketball team. And again, it's just experience. That's the only reason I'm not picking them to make the finals, because I think that really, truly, you don't know what round 2 and round 3 is like until you're there, and countless people have said this.
They're built on modern basketball, just positionless, can defend, can shoot, can make the right passes, can take the right shots. And that's when you look at why they're shooting great percentages across the board, even guys who play 15, 10 minutes a game, it's got to be coaching, I guess. They just have a good sense of till we get a good shot, don't outplay yourself. And that's a really unique thing for a young team, I think. But yeah, I mean, back to the Suns, though, if you're done on them.
Well, but to that point, I think I've said this on the podcast before, but maybe the most proud I've ever been of a tweet before, because you know how I like to blend sports and video games, or sports and movies, whatever. I tweeted, watching OKC reminds me of Red Dead Redemption 2, which is this game about cowboys and more so outlaws at the turn of the 1900s starting up, where we're not going to let you guys be outlawing anymore. You guys are going to not be able to get away with this. And people like you that make it just live off being an outlaw, you guys aren't going to exist anymore, because there are these law enforcement agencies that are going to be
laws,
looking
government
out for you. Yeah, that kind of thing. So I said it reminds me of the game. The times are changing. If you're not a smart and skilled ball handler in 5 to 10 years, you are Arthur Morgan, the main character of the game. Someone the inevitable future will make a dinosaur soon enough. And
wow, you tweeted all that? You did. You're reading it.
I tweeted all that
that's
in
good,
January of 2023. But to your point, it's just Shea can do everything with a ball. Mm-hmm. Jalen Williams can do everything with a ball.
Yeah.
Chet, for his size, can pretty much do everything with a ball. At his age, where he's at, imagine what he's going to be in 5 years, how he's reading the court and stuff. Getty is the limited guy in that group, but he is a high-level playmaker. Lou Dort, he'll do dribble stuff occasionally. Now, you don't want him to be doing that, but with that being said, he's not just a catch and shoot guy. That's primarily his role. Cason Wallace was a guy who was looked at as a combo guard coming out of the draft, but guess what? A really smart team took him and said, we're just going to make you a 3-and-D guy right now, and then we'll do the Mikal Bridges thing maybe in 3 years with you. So they're just led by guys like that they've targeted in the draft, and that's even with someone like Ousmane Dieng, who was supposed to be their 6'10" versatile wing, long versatile wing. He hasn't really quite panned out just yet. But man, they're really impressive. So I just wanted to really highlight them on the episode, because they have played OKC before. They played them in November, but that was the Booker-less team. They were 4-6. The Suns weren't really there. And then OKC was at the very start of it. They're 41-17, and they've won 6 straight basketball games. They're excellent. So they're playing. The Suns are playing them on Sunday, and then they play them again on March 29th at the end of the year. There's this that's the second game of that last 10 where it gets brutal.
I wanted to point out, like, okay, they're playing them. I think they have Pels twice. Or at
Pels
least
twice.
Pels twice.
Pels on April 1st and April 7th.
And they're right with them in the standings. They still have a tiebreaker to figure out there. Kings, I believe they have a tiebreaker to figure out.
Second to last game of the year.
Yeah, that's after 2 Clippers games.
Yep.
So you still have 2 Clippers games left. But also, you even look below the Suns, a bit below, and like the Warriors are still doing the "we're not dead yet" thing that they did when the Suns last played them. Chris Paul's back.
Chris Paul's back. The dynamic duo off the bench. Chris Paul and Klay Thompson.
So
guess what? They drafted another really good player. 2. Brandon Pajemski seems pretty good.
Yeah.
Jonathan Kuminga is now really good.
figuring it out, like, so
They
yeah.
always do it. Those sons of guns.
Yeah, I mean,
And then when he signed to a 5-year, $150 million deal, they'll trade him to wherever.
yeah.
They'll maximize and then.
But yeah, I mean, it's going to be a wild finish. So to the point of where we started off the top, better button up soon, Phoenix Suns. Yeah.
Not even a soon thing. It's just you have to be able to maintain what you've done now. Like, you don't have if there was any sort of wiggle room for them, it's gone. And it was gone a while ago. But to your point, they were sort of ripping off, and it seemed like they were kind of heading into a really good place. 26-18 is where they were at. And they're 8-6 since then. And that's above 500, and that's fine. But if other teams get hot right now, you're going to need to be better than fine. And a lot of that is contingent on Bradley Beal coming back.
Yeah.
I don't know, guys.
Why don't you know? That's your
I
job,
don't know.
Kellan.
When we don't get the 2 to 3 week timeline thing, it's assumed to be a day-to-day injury. But Dwayne Rankin with the paper did a really good job of kind of following up, because it seemed like he had a report last week, and Dwayne's normally on everything. He had a report that, like, if nothing goes wrong, he's going to be back. He had that report All-Star weekend. He's going to be back Thursday if everything goes well. And now he's still out a week and a half later. So it's like, did something happen? Is he fine? Is this a strain? They're still listing it as hamstring tightness.
Uber cautionary? I don't know.
I believe that Vogel, when the god Barry Bloom pressed about injury stuff, like Barry Bloom will be known to do. That's a reference like 7 people listening to this podcast will understand, but those 7 will
Boomski on basketball.
really love it. He
Yes.
got Vogel to say it is a strain.
Okay.
So it's obviously not just tightness, which I think we all knew, but it was good to hear it said aloud. And they need him back, but that was part of the reason why I wrote the story is, like, guess what? If I had to sit here and guess, like, let's say they play 13 games in the first round, in the first 2 rounds, excuse me. Assuming they make it past the first round, which matchup based, we'll see. That's what I've been saying. If I had to sit here and tell you, do I think every member of the big 3 will play in all of those games, 1, or 2, will play in all of those games and look like they are healthy? Because I think that if someone gets hurt, they're probably just going to play through it anyway, unless it's a serious injury like Chris's was on multiple occasions with him. But I don't have faith that that's going to happen, just with the way that this year has gone, specifically for Brad, but also for the other 2 guys as well. Like, they've had their bumps and bruises over the year.
Yeah.
Like Book's, that was it. When Book did whatever he did when he was going baseline to baseline to chase that steal.
Yeah.
They were cooked. I knew as soon as I saw that and he wasn't driving the ball, I was like, the series is over. I'm sure there were fans like, oh yeah, well, of course it was over. It was like, well, you forget how it was in Phoenix for games 3 and 4, and then you get to 6. Who knows? But
I will say the interesting part about your story and that you wrote today was just the awareness of, like, Grayson Allen, for example. Like, he's aware who's on the court with him. He's aware Bradley Beal's not there.
Vogel said that, yeah.
Yeah, and Frank Vogel said basically, like, he's going to shoot a lot more, and I think you used the word chucker, not quoted, but you used it, I believe.
He needs to have a chucker's mindset, is what I said. Like, he took 12 threes against the Lakers. It's like, yes.
Yeah.
That Mike Vigil has been sarcastically, but not really sarcastically saying, like, maybe Grayson Allen taking 15 threes a game is our best offense right now.
And that's the thing. It's like, you haven't even had a fall off in the percentage yet, so maybe chuck more. Like if you drop to like 35, still chuck more at this rate. So that's going to be something to watch. But yeah, they could use a Bradley Beal back. Anything else? What are we missing? Anything new?
Not really. I mentioned Denver. They started off the year 17-10. They're coming up on Tuesday, so I don't know if we'll podcast before them, but just like a brief update on them. 17-10 after a quick loss to Oklahoma City, or 14-9, whatever you want to call it. But since that 17-10 mark, they are 22-9. So they've been more or less in that range of where the top 4 are, but it just took them 30 games, to sort of get there. It's pretty much what you expect. Jokic is the best player in the world. He's having another incredible season. All of those guys know their roles. Jamal Murray looks like a top 10 point guard in the regular season, and then guess what? When the bright stage and the bright lights come on, he looks like one of the best players in the world.
Yep.
He has certified that after the finals run last year, the championship run last year. Michael Porter Jr. knows what he's doing. Aaron Gordon knows what he's doing. Quietly shooting 45, 36, 78 from the field off 11 points per game. Reggie Jackson.
He's in there now.
He was a buyout guy where it was like, okay, like you guys really think, and then he just needed a full year to get it under him. There hasn't been I think the main question I have, and I am not qualified enough to say this, is how ready are the kids? Like, did Christian Brown take a step forward this year? Is he more or less look like the same player? Peyton Watson has been the guy getting reps for them. He was someone who did not pass the Aaron Holiday test at UCLA whatsoever. But then he gets to the pros, and then he gets in the system, and especially defensively, he is really, really popped. If you just search Peyton Watson on Twitter right now, you're going to see defensive highlights of him. He's been good enough to make you think that if his offense is figured out, he'll make multiple all-defense teams in his career. Like, he's been that type of defender in his first real, true NBA season. Julian Strawther.
Yeah.
I was a member of a Hive. Kevin shooting 31 from 3, which that is the classic, like, I'm a rookie. There's a lot going on.
Have you seen his stroke? Yeah.
But it's not really happening there. It's Brown and Watson have been the guys consistently in there. Strawther's getting cracks every now and then. Zeke Naji is getting some run occasionally, but not so much. They're still kind of doing the DeAndre Jordan thing, I think. But I think unless they absolutely collapse, like they went through like a little skid here for a while where people are like, what's going on with the Nuggets? And it's like they had one of these last year and then they were awesome. So that's how I think they're still like the Nuggets. There's no reason to not think they're the Nuggets, but in case you were curious.
Can I leave you with a crazy thought? Are we going to be talking in what? A monthish, a little over a month, about the Phoenix Suns wanting to lose games and
to avoid Denver,
to hit the Timberwolves or something.
I saw someone tweet that last night. I can't remember. Someone said like being the 7 or the 8 seems pretty cool right now. That is because
the problem is you have to do play-ins.
Yes, the Nuggets are the 3,
which you don't want.
So only 2 losses out. The Nuggets have 19 losses, and so do the Clippers right behind them. And then the Timberwolves and Thunder are at 17. That is still very much a jumbled up thing. Like all it takes is Minnesota kind of falling out. But the thing is, Minnesota's just won all year. Oklahoma City's just won all year. Denver had just like a slight like 7 games over 500 thing, or 5 games.
Do you want to hit
thing.
Denver before they really ramp up? The problem in all this is like you don't want to be in a play-in game. You don't want to be in. So.
I think you avoid the play-in at all costs, no matter what.
Yes.
And if you're the 5 or the 6 and you have to play Denver or LA, I agree with what you just said, which is it's better to get them early. And guess what? If you get Minnesota or Oklahoma City in the later rounds, I think that's even better.
Yeah.
You just got to get past it. And that's the thing is like,
let the other people scout them, find their flaws, and then you apply that. Yeah.
I think the only thought that would bear something here is if you believe that the Suns getting OKC or Minnesota a better matchup in theory in the first round, they need to get that will get their gears spinning to the point where you think now they could potentially beat Denver or the Clippers, whereas if they played them in round 1, you didn't think they would beat them. I don't think we're there. Again, it's my whole tagline for this is like it's March.
Yeah,
we're already here. But I think especially with the teams in the play-in. So here are the play-in teams right now. The Kings, who could put 140 on you any night.
No.
The Dallas Mavericks, where Luka and Kyrie could combine for 80 in any night. And then they could, again, they lost the playoff series like this 2 years ago where they shot 40 from three and you never stand a chance. Now they could shoot 32 from three and you beat them, but they're the ultimate are the threes going in team, and they've gotten better. PJ Washington figuring it out still, but Gafford looks like he's the guy. Steph and the Golden State Warriors.
No.
LeBron James and the Los Angeles Lakers.
Yeah, if I had to choose.
If you had to choose,
But I don't want to choose.
Do you want to see LeBron in a do or die game? No.
It also depends if you're the can you lose one in the play-in? Can you lose two? Like, yeah, this is too much.
Well, they're going to be the 7 or the 8 very likely. They are only 3 games ahead of the Warriors again. So if they skid, but we don't anticipate them to skid, and we don't anticipate the Warriors to win 22 of their last 25.
No.
They're at the 7 or the 8, which would mean they have to lose twice. But at the same time, you can lose twice. It is not difficult to do. I believe the plan, this is more of like a talk for us in the first week of April, but I believe the numbers are like the 7 and the 8 have just made it every time.
Okay.
Something like that, like the history of the plan.
What are we in? 2 years and 2 conferences, so.
How could you forget the TJ
Do the
McConnell
math.
play-in game? Come on, man, you know that. How about the Cats? What you thinking? Another one tonight?
Oh, yeah. That's Cats talk for you.
I was already wrong. The Memphis made it to the 8th seed. They were a 9. 7 and 8 in the East were Boston and Washington in 2021. In 22, it was Minnesota as the 7. They were the 7. And then New Orleans as the 8. They were the 9. And then 7 and 9, Brooklyn and Atlanta. So Atlanta was able to win 2 straight as well. It was the 7-8 again in 2023. Last year it was the 7-8 again. So.
Okay.
Yeah, it's been a resulting playoff seed. Here you go. So you get, you've had 3 9s make it, which is.
Yeah. Don't want to be losing to that 9.
And I think that's because there's like a drop off there, right? Like.
Yeah.
So yeah. All right, we're out of here. See you, everyone.